Hello and Ashe. Good morning to you all, people. How are you? How are you feeling? How is your witchy practice today? I'm sorry for my redness, but I just recently applied my placenta cream, and actually there's nothing like placenta cream, for keeping your skin nice and tight. You know, I have a very sensitive skin. I have to take care of it, and every once in a while I'm applying the placenta cream, which is a bit violent, but it gives me results. So, excuse my redness today. And this is another Witchy Book review. Now, I know I promised that I will give you a review for Penzak's Instant Magic. I will. I haven't finished reading it. The reason why I'm so slow reading it is not because I'm a slow reader, but because I hate this book. And I'm reading it slowly twice, so I can make a proper book review of it. So I can be somewhat objective, but this is, and if I'm thinking, if I'm starting to bash books on my channel, I don't want to be the pagan book basher, so every once in a while I do a good book review and a bad book review. So this is the good one, I'll make a third book review with the exact book later, but now I want to do a good big book review for those. I don't know if you know those. The Crone's books of magical words and the Crone books of charms and spells. Okay, by Valerie Worth. Valerie Worth. I think her picture is in here. Now, those I actually got in the 90s, many years ago. Those are by Llewellyn, by the way. Those are Llewellyn brand books. But those are very good books. And let's talk about them. Let's talk about Valerie Worth, okay? Valerie Worth is an American poet. And she wrote, she was married to this guy, this George Blake Black. I can't really pronounce his last name, forgive me. And she was in, when you read those books, you think that they were written by this old lady sitting in a cottage in a village, somewhere. But no, she was actually part of the, the academic world, very much part of the academic world. She published many young adults and many poem books that are still somewhat available. And that's interesting because this says actually that her texts are somewhat of the rich culture of American poetry. And if you're interested, you can search some of her poems on YouTube. I've seen quite a bit of her poems being read on YouTube. Now, I saw one book review about those books with the book of Ray T. Marlborough. And it wasn't enough, it wasn't thorough enough for my taste. So I thought about, talking about those books and what they would give you, the modern witches, okay? Now, first of all, those books are written in a beautiful English that I haven't seen anybody speaking and writing for a long time. I actually learned some of my English from those books. I gave book reports on my 10th grade on those books. My teacher told me, Arden, enough giving me book reports about witchcraft. Enough. Go read something else. And I said, fine. And I read Bram Stoker's Dracula and, Frankenstein and the picture of Dorian Gray and crap like that. So, out of those two books, if you're considering one, okay, one that is interesting and practical, get this one. Get the Crone books of charms and spells. And what's in it? Okay. Okay, it has like introduction, the materials of wisdom, where she talks about hair brews, okay, like for instance, Anis the amorous decides to strengthen passions, and Basil the courageous against faintness of the heart, and Rude the mysterious to assault guilt and sorrow, and other things. And she talks about using wild herbs for practical magical purposes. And I would like, at the beginning I had to really look. It was before the time that Wikipedia even existed, so I had to look those things by using some of my normal herb books. Okay. The ground ivy, called also gill over the ground, may be brewed into a bitter tea and sipped to overcome weakness and timidity. Strewn into the floors of the house, these leaves will promote serenity and benign dreams. Okay, you have little tidbits of like this. It has like all sorts of herbs. And no, this is not a herb book, and it's herbs is not the thing about this. But she goes on to creation of charms, creations of talismans, about amulets and magical rings, scented oils, fragrant tinctures, the preparation of balms, candles and incense. She talks about a lot of aspects of the crafts. Which is, again, it's not about teaching you again how to make a tincture or a balm. It's about her way of doing this. And again, it's a very personal book. It's her book. It's like a little book, or little grimoire, or a little book of spells. Okay? It's very interesting. Okay? And then there are talismans. And this is one of the aspects of these unique books. She talks about talismans. Okay? What should be like on and the hair talismans are discs that she writes one thing on one side and magical words on the other sides. And honestly, I haven't seen people using too much words in the ritual and magic lately. Okay, people are timid from words, and this book is remedial for words. For instance, for beauty. Upon the first face of the talisman shall be depicted a small disc with 5 rays as a star, flanked by the crescent moon and the fiery sun. Upon the reverse shall be written characters well formed, these words: morning star and even an evening star. By thy light I grow fair. Now, doing that, would that be enough to make a charm to be beautiful? I don't think so. But I think that this is a wonderful basis for, casting your own spells. And I haven't seen, you can also write those things on a piece of paper and roll them up in your mojo bag. You don't have to, make a disc and display that to the world. But she has, a lot of charms, and it's a very interesting thing. She also has planetary charms, inscribed by runes, 9 inscriptions for amulets honoring and invoking the powers of the 9 stars, where they also have runes on them. You see, it's not that she's very original in the way that she, casts spells and interesting things. Some things that are here are a little bit bizarre, Some things are here that are a little bit bizarre and are not so useful, okay? But some of those things are. And when I'm talking about bizarre things, it's she has a charm to turn pebbles into gems, which is a very fanciful charm, but it's not going to work so well, at least, no more than glamorize some white pebbles to make you think they are gems and play with them a bit, but, it's about usefulness, and you can get a lot of inspiration here, okay? Here, let me read one of her charms, for instance. A charm to win the moon's aid for a secret purpose. A small globe of crystal or a clear uncolored glass must be first be consecrated by holding it up to the light of the full moon. Then the lunar image be caught therein. After this have been performed, the sphere shall be served for a charm to procure the secret wishes of its owner. But again, she doesn't say that, but those needs to be like lunar, subconscious wishes. Thus, on the night of each new moon, hold the sphere in the left palm, and by candlelight gaze upon it and say this: Crescent be full and crystal fill, thus my eye and thus my will. And she says this in Latin: Fiat volentes abdita. Fiat volentes abdita. Fiat volentes abdita. I'm mispronouncing it. The sphere should be then kept in a small bag of leather inscribed with the figures of the moon phases and worn tied to a thong about the neck during those days and nights between the crescent and the full. While this is not being worn, the charm should be kept wrapped in a black cloth and hidden away. So this is a very inspirational book for me. Also, you know, she has hexes here and curses. Like one of those that I've used, a charm to bind an enemy. Gather from the corners of your chambers every cobweb and place them all in a tangle upon a black cloth. Procure there a fly recently dead and set it upon a mass of webs. Those words should be then written down on paper. North, south, east, west. Spider web shall bind him best. East, west, north, south. Hold his limbs and stop his mouth. Seal his eyes and choke his breath. Wrap him round with ropes of death. Fold the paper 4 times and wrap it up, along with the fly and the webs in the black cloth, forming a small bag. This should be then bound up in the end of a long cord and suspended from a hook in some dark corner of the house. Do not disturb it, but let it hang until it's thickly covered with dust. Then it may be taken down and buried in the earth to work its influence in perpetual secrecy. This is a book that you might not cast the spells in it as it is, but it actually gives you very beautiful, sophisticated spells celebrating the English language that will allow one to make one own spells and gives inspiration. So this is for me a very good inspiration book. And like, even now, I would be like thinking, every time I have a need, I need to remember, I'm trying to remember if that spells, if it's what is corresponding in my voodoo tradition, and 2, does Valerie Worth have a spell like this, and can I voodooize one of her spells? And she has many things here, like a charm to increase beauty and other things. And also, she has ceremonies for the year. Now, her ceremonies for the year are ceremonies for the Sabbats, which basically, you know, screams to the world, I'm Wiccan, okay, or at least she's very highly influenced by a Wiccan, by the Wiccan tradition. And those ceremonies are beautiful. I have never read such beautiful ceremonies. I'm not going to read you one, but if you want to read those, and if you want to, if you want like to get her influence about your own rituals. And by the way, those are coven-based rituals, some of them, or most of them. I don't remember, I don't celebrate the 8 Sabbats. I don't remember, so this is a part of a book that I almost didn't touch. So it's a wonderful book. It's a great book. And I'll talk about her second one, the Crone Books of Magical Words. Now, this is just about spells, okay? And she makes this weird chapters here, like the spirit, the magician, the cosmos, but all those spells are basically, you know, it's one book, okay? And this one I got years after I got the Crone Book of Charms and Spells, and this is, while very nicely written and made, is not so high quality like the first one. I like the first one better. The second one is simply, you know, it's good. It has interesting things in it. Again, it's a very good inspiration book. And also not one that, it has different spells, and in those spells are written in rhyme. Like, I just opened it randomly, to afflict another's garden. That garden so swollen with prizes and pride may find its wealth stolen, its boasting belied. There from your own send failure and blight, by anointing a stone with the paste of this eight. The aphid, the snail, the slug and the beetle, the rust and the gall, the mildew, the spittle, all smashed in a mortar and stilled to a slime, then dried into a powder and moistened with brine. Hold hiding the curse in your hand when you call, and think of this verse when you let the stone fall. Proud flowers here grow sick and sere, foul pests descend, this Eden end. She didn't, she wasn't so scared to write things about the macabre, and to write things about, all sorts of things, to increase one's power, a figure to influence, for influence over another. She wasn't so scared using magic to get her own needs. Okay, and even her husband, he wrote this, that Valerie would be sincerely sad if anybody would use those spells for harming someone else. But I think that she wrote those things, and those things are very practical. I think she used them. It's very interesting. Those are very interesting little two books, and if you want to enrich and to celebrate the beauty and the artistry of witchcraft, I highly recommend those. Even though, again, it has some fanciful things about them that are not very practical. Let me see if I can find for you here. To change pebbles into jewels. I talked about this one. For rubies and emeralds to hold in handfuls, amethysts and sapphires to scatter in the air, berries and opals to fill your pockets with, paths of diamonds to walk on carelessly. Gather pebbles as white as ivory, wash some in winter green, wash some in wine, wash some in iodine, wash some in vinegar, wash some in almond oil, wash some in milk, and then clean them well in soap and water, dry them and keep them dark in a box that is lined with silk, in a thrice-locked room, until the earth is covered with snow. When the winter moon is rising full, and the planet Venus lies white in the west, spread them glittering under the sky, steep them in snowlight, moonlight, starlight, the whole night through. Then, if they are not clear and colored and color as they should, it is not the spell gone wrong, it's your own flawed eye. So this is where I finish this video. Read those books and love those books. Those books are amazing. Okay, goodbye and ashe.